the IDF escorted media tour in and around Gaza City. It integrates up-to-date titles and facts and preserves key on-the-record statements verbatim, with the speaker named and titled. The convoy moved under Israeli military escort toward Gaza City, where months of operations have transformed dense neighborhoods into blasted concrete and tangled rebar. International reporters were allowed in for a tightly controlled look at areas the Israel Defense Forces say they wrested from Hamas. This embed was limited in scope and duration, and all movement and filming was supervised by the army. The framing reflects the IDF's narrative of a fallen Hamas fortress in Gaza City, while independent, unsupervised access for foreign press has generally not been allowed for nearly 2 years. Vehicles entered through the Netzarim corridor, a military zone cutting north and south Gaza, before skirting ruined blocks on the city's edge. The tour took reporters past the vicinity of the Jordanian Field Hospital, where the army says a Hamas tunnel complex ran nearby. Soldiers showed journalists drone footage from inside a roughly 1.5-kilometre tunnel and claimed explosives had been staged in interior rooms. These claims were presented during the embed. They could not be independently verified on the spot by the journalists present. Much of the cityscape displayed the cumulative effect of sustained aerial strikes and ground fighting. The IDF insisted its operations were deliberate, aimed at minimizing civilian harm while degrading Hamas's remaining capabilities and locating hostages. However, humanitarian agencies and medical bodies have warned of collapsing services, with many hospitals non-functional or partially functional after repeated operations, fuel shortages, and damage in surrounding areas. On another escorted visit to the outskirts of Gaza City in late October, reporters from the Australian Broadcasting Corporation were taken to positions near Shijaya. There, the IDF again described Hamas's tunnel networks as the justification for an offensive that left large swaths of urban terrain uninhabitable. In remarks recorded during that visit, a war is a difficult thing, it's a hard thing, said Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani, IDF international spokesperson. This war began because of Hamas and wouldn't end because of Hamas. The IDF has repeatedly rejected allegations of indiscriminate strikes, saying its operations target fighters and infrastructure and that it attempts to warn civilians and open evacuation routes. The escorted ABC visit also highlighted the so-called Yellow Line, a boundary to which Israeli forces had partially pulled back under the current truce arrangements. Officials told the media contingent that yellow concrete blocks were placed to clarify the line for residents and troops amid disputes about its exact location. The IDF estimated that pockets of Hamas fighters remained inside the area under its control, alongside a small number of civilians. The reporters said they were on the ground for about an hour and did not interact with Palestinian residents during the embed. Across these escorted tours, the IDF presented the Gaza City campaign as a necessary push into Hamas's final strongholds. It emphasizes that tunnel warfare and command nodes embedded in civilian areas require complex operations and intensive munitions, including armor-supported incursions and demolition of booby-trapped structures. The military maintains that the presence of militants within or adjacent to civilian facilities, including medical sites, has repeatedly forced difficult tactical decisions. During the Gaza City embed near the Jordanian Field Hospital, the IDF asserted that Hamas had been making weapons in rooms beneath the hospital, while the facility above struggled to function. For outside audiences, the central point of contention remains verification, with foreign press permitted only on rare army-supervised visits, and with local Palestinian reporters bearing the brunt of frontline coverage. Much of the most consequential evidence is filtered through military briefings, curated footage, or investigations published well after events. Newsrooms have repeatedly pressed for free movement to confirm claims about targets, tunnel routes, fire sequences, and proportionality. The ABC emphasised that their escorted visit was no substitute for independent access. Challenges to military narratives continue to surface in third-party inquiries and visual investigations. The IDF's international spokesperson unit has been a prominent vector for messaging. Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani appointed to the top role in 2024, has routinely briefed international media and appeared across broadcasters and online platforms. His title and role have been confirmed by multiple public records and his official social accounts. We have done everything we can to make sure that we are allowing civilians to get out of harm's way, he said in remarks to ABC during the Shijaya visit, reiterating Israel's argument that Hamas tactics, tunnels, embedded cells and booby traps drive the intensity and character of urban combat. Alongside battlefield updates, the humanitarian layer remains critical context. As of late October and early November, ceasefire arrangements reduced the tempo of strikes at times, but shelling and air attacks have periodically resumed amid mutual accusations of truce violations. The ABC's account noted Israeli strikes shortly after their escorted tour, while other outlets documented both a fragile calm and renewed exchanges. Aid delivery, rubble clearance and restoration of basic utilities lag far behind the scale of need, and returnees to devastated neighbourhoods face acute shortages. From the Israeli perspective, the insistence is that Gaza City's reduction was integral to neutralising Hamas command layers and pressure points. The embed near the Jordanian hospital became a focal image, a destroyed urban zone where reporters were invited to look down from a secure vantage point at the ruins, while soldiers narrated the underground fight tunnel branches, transit galleries, weapons rooms, intended ambush sites. The Army's drone video presented to journalists showed sections of cramped passageways. The stated aim was to demonstrate the hidden architecture that, according to Israel, necessitated sustained operations above ground. Other episodes in the broader campaign have sharpened scrutiny of IDF conduct. Independent visual analyses have at times contradicted official explanations and led to calls for accountability. While such investigations do not directly pertain to the specific embed described here, they form part of the evidentiary environment in which all claims are weighed, including those arising from curated military tours. This climate of contestation further strengthens arguments for full, independent media access and for transparent, timely release of targeting rationales and after-action reviews. Still, the Army's message to visiting press has been consistent. Civilian harm is an acknowledged tragedy of urban war, not its objective. And tunnel-centric combat inside a city the size of Gaza City inherently raises risks. During the ABC visit, Shoshani framed both causality and end state around Hamas's actions and future choices. The way this war is fought is because of Hamas's actions or Hamas tactics in this war, said Lieutenant Colonel Nadav Shoshani. This war began because of Hamas and wouldn't end because of Hamas. Those lines encapsulate the IDF's explanation for both the destruction on the surface and the attritional pace of operations underground. For policy context, Israel remains led by Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. The defense portfolio shifted in late 2024 to Israel Katz, whose tenure has featured hardline rhetoric and policies, especially regarding Gaza. These political backdrops inform the military's rules of engagement and the government's communication about acceptable costs and strategic objectives, hostage recovery, dismantling Hamas's command and tunnel networks, and shaping post-conflict governance arrangements north of the Yellow Line. Within Gaza City proper, the fate of civic infrastructure continues to be a decisive variable. The World Health Organization's counts relayed in reporting from the AP embed indicated the majority of hospitals were non-operational, with remaining sites partially functional under severe strain. The IDF argues that Hamas's use of medical facilities for command or storage perverts protected status under the laws of war. Palestinian authorities and health workers dispute this framing and stress that patients and staff have borne unacceptable risk. The escorted tours, by allowing limited looks at alleged subterranean features, are part of Israel's attempt to substantiate its claims, though the lack of independent, on-demand access complicates verification. Casualty accounting remains highly politicized and difficult to verify in real time, but the scale is undisputedly vast. Figures cited during the ABC visit referred to tens of thousands of Palestinian deaths since October 2023, as well as the initial Hamas assault that killed about 1,200 people in Israel and led to the abduction of roughly 250 hostages. The AP Embed noted the IDF's assertion that dozens of hostages were still held as of early October 2025, despite multiple exchanges under ceasefire arrangements. Inside Israel, the prosecutorial and public opinion dimensions of the war have grown increasingly complex. Investigative reporting has spotlighted specific incidents, elevating debates over command decisions and compliance with targeting protocols. Such inquiries, while separate from the guided Gaza City tour, shape international perceptions of the IDF's conduct and amplify pressure for transparent rules of engagement and post-strike assessments. Israeli officials argue that these conflicts are prosecuted under intense legal oversight and that soldiers are instructed to adhere to international humanitarian law, even in the most constrained circumstances. The IDF organised media access has therefore become both a tactical and strategic tool. Tactically, it demonstrates to global audiences that Hamas's defences included a concealed, militarised underworld intended to outlast above-ground strikes and complicate any post-conflict stabilisation. Strategically, it seeks to re-anchor discourse on proportionality and necessity around the operational reality Israel says it faced: explosives-lined corridors, command rooms under civilian sites, and ambush points wired into residential blocks. The military hopes that showing the physicality of these tunnels will recalibrate debates about urban devastation and the time needed to degrade what it calls a deeply entrenched militant machine. Reporters on these tours, however, frequently underline the limitations. Time on the ground is short, the route is pre-selected, interactions with civilians are absent, and inspection of claimed sites is largely observational. ABC described the embed as no substitute for free access, noting that the Israeli Supreme Court was facing a challenge on media restrictions. Those constraints sharpen the imperative for independent verification, particularly where claims about tunnels beneath protected facilities intersect with core questions of international humanitarian law. In the coming weeks, key variables will shape whether these fallen fortress narratives harden into the historical record or remain contested. The durability of the ceasefire, the pace of hostage releases, the scale of returns to northern neighbourhoods, and the willingness of Israeli authorities to permit less controlled press movement. Analysts also point to political dynamics in Jerusalem within the cabinet and security establishment as drivers of how far the army will push beyond current lines and how quickly any reconstruction or governance pilot zones might proceed. For now, the record includes images of gutted boulevards, bulldozers cutting into collapsed facades, and soldiers gesturing at screen grabs of cramped passageways below. It also includes the words of the IDF's international spokesperson, reflecting the military's core message to visitors: a war is a difficult thing. It's a hard thing. We have done everything we can to make sure that we are allowing civilians to get out of harm's way. This war began because of Hamas and wouldn't end because of Hamas. Those statements, delivered on camera during escorted access, will continue to be weighed against independent evidence and the testimonies of civilians and medical workers whose city, for now, is defined by loss and uncertainty. As with any guided military tour, the material presented represents the host's perspective. The role of journalism, particularly when unrestricted access is impossible, is to place that perspective alongside corroboration from humanitarian agencies, medical bodies, and open source investigations, to keep core facts current and to maintain clarity about what has been seen firsthand, what has been asserted, and what remains to be independently verified. In Gaza City, that balance rests on whether more transparent access is permitted and whether the competing claims about tunnels, targeting, and civilian protection can be tested in the full light of day.